Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the TradeStation Masterclass. My name is Jesus Nava. I'm the Director of Client Training and Education for TradeStation, and I'm going to be the host of today's presentation. In a minute, we're going to have John Bruch with us. He's the Director of Easylanguage Services for TradeStation Technologies, and he's going to answer some of your Easylanguage questions as we go along. Before we get started, here are some important disclosures. Just keep in mind that every symbol and idea that we talk about is for educational purposes only. It is not a recommendation of TradeStation. Also, that active trading is not suitable for everyone. It should only be done with risk capital, and that past historical performance is no guarantee of future results. For additional information on these disclosures, please visit our website, www.tradestation.com/important-information. All right, guys, thank you for being here. And we have a few things pending. John, good morning. How are you today?
Hey, good morning, Jesus. I'm fine, thanks. How's everything over there?
Good, good. So
Good.
that's one of the first pending things. I'm saying hello to
That's
you.
right. That's right.
So yeah. So welcome to class, John. Looking
Thank you.
forward to some of the questions that are here. And Mike, who's chatting with us at the moment, is I've been kind of talking to Mike as well on other classes. He created a very cool indicator, and he's made a lot of progress on this.
Oh, great.
So Mike, I'm not sure if are you okay with me sharing that screenshot you sent me, so that John can look at it and maybe give us some feedback. Oh, by the way, let me just make everybody allow them to use their microphones as well. All right. So
hi, Jose and John. I don't mind. Would you like me to share it, or can you share it?
Let me share it so that John has an idea of what you did. So, okay, so you can see the screenshot, right?
Yes.
Okay,
got it.
So John, Mike created an indicator that plots horizontal lines as you see them there, very similar to what chart trading does when you have the preview of an OCO. Very similar to that, and he has some text that gets plotted based on some calculations similar to the preview, which is the risk reward and some percentage movement from an entry point. So the middle line is an entry point, and then you have a target and a stop loss, and it does all those sorts of calculations. It appears that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, that as new bars get created, he's unable to relocate the text. So it seems like it's duplicating the text over and over as a new bar shows up. So in our conversations in the past, we were wondering, okay, there must be somewhere of either removing the text and plotting it again, or relocating the text and moving it.
I was able to get that solved using an if-then statement from the form.
Okay.
But for the recording, I don't know if you want to touch on that for other people.
So you did, you were able to resolve it then?
Yes, I've been able to solve a lot of my issues with building this, actually. It's working pretty good. The one problem I'm having right now is the general account value pulling from real-time account value. It only updates when I change symbols. So we don't have to get into that right now, but that's pretty much the only issue that I have. I've also, just for some background, I've added multiple lines similar to the target, one for 3R all or nothing, 2R all or nothing, pivot management, and end of day, so that I can compare the different trade management techniques between each other and try to start moving myself from getting in and out of trades to actually using some type of a trade management method that pays out more, but still limits the risk.
That's pretty cool that you were able to do that, Mike. Let me ask you something. Did you find information in the forums helpful? I mean, did you get a little bit of guidance there? Or did you pretty much figure this out on your own?
So All the above. The form was very helpful and for other people, very timely. So the responses are immediate and very helpful. And it's not only from the moderators, but also other people that are watching the emails that are coming through. And you can, and I did apply to or sign up for the emails. So I'm getting emails for all of the conversations that are updated, which
Pretty cool.
will be helpful in the future. One problem, Jesus, is that I'm having with this code is just understanding how methods interact between each other, and then how the body of the code kicks off or a method. And I put in the chat log a couple of examples. I've used the dictionary multiple times to try to understand the process of naming a method, I guess how the class gets attached to the method, and then what's happening within the parentheses.
Yeah, so that's exactly why we have John here. John, did you get all that?
I think so. Those are good questions. You're getting right into. Let me share my screen here.
Yes.
And let's see here. Okay, it's a little bit long and thin. Can you see this open Easylanguage dialog box?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's take just to get started, and we can adjust as we go here. But this is a line at price indicator, and I chose it because it does a little bit of it uses a horizontal line. So we could look at another one that moves. Maybe floating text would be another good one, at least to look at. The although this one calls a function, as I recall, that
and just to let you know, John, I think Mike was all the things that Mike has been able to do is also looking at those indicators, floating text, line at price. We looked at chart trading. So he's been looking at all these different pieces of code.
Chart trading code was very helpful for the preview functionality.
Okay, good. Okay. So the I was just looking for where we do the positioning of the text label here. I think, we used an XY point positioning. So if the text is going to stay in a particular location, then with respect to the chart, let me show you what I mean here. Okay, so if we want to add some text, let's say, for example, we could, and we want it to, quote unquote, stay in position, or sometimes we've used this terminology of calling floating. Then, so this text here, it doesn't have to be moved because it's positioned by XY point. So given a certain assumption of a horizontal sort of x-axis to the chart and a vertical y-axis, this piece of text here will always stay in the same XY position. And so rather than positioning, for example, by bar number, which is another option, or by date time, which is yet another option for positioning a drawing object, if we position by XY point, then the object will sort of float, in the sense of it'll stay in its place regardless of what's happening kind of underneath it or with anywhere else in the chart. New bars can form and so on. and this text just stays where it is by XY position. So that's one option if we want text to, for example, always remain in the same position relative to the XY coordinates, if you can imagine, of the chart. Okay, so that prevents you having to move it, you know, as new bars form, for example. Okay, so now let me back up and try to answer some of the more sort of OO related, you know, object oriented related questions. Like, first of all, I think the first question was something along the lines of, hey, what does this, we call this a method prototype. What is that, you know, what goes in the parentheses, and what does all that mean, and when does the method get called, and all that kind of thing. So for example, maybe this would be a good one to look at, is this subgraph resize method. And so there are several parts of the prototype statement. There's the term method that tells the compiler that we're starting to create a method. Then there's a data type, which is the return type. If the method's going to return a value to the caller, then we'll put the return type here, which could be anything, an object type or a native data type. In this case, we don't return anything, so we use the word void as the return type. And then there's the name of the method, in this case, text label underscore subgraph resize, and then some parameters that the method is expecting. In this case, the first parameter is of object type, and we gave it the name sender. The second parameter is of subgraph resize event args type, and its name of that, the name of that parameter that we can use to reference it. This is its type. This is the name of it, and then we can refer to it as args within the, as we do here, within the method itself. So those are the basic kind of constituents of a method declaration, along with the begin, end, and any variables. Of course, I guess I should mention, if we're going to declare variables, as long as we're on the subject here, I'll mention one little thing here, which is that let's say we're going to create a variable, you know, an int var, and it's going to be named x. We unlike the variable declaration at the beginning of up above here, unlike these variables declared up here, which all have a default value, method variables don't have a default value assigned in the declaration. So here, rather than saying int x and giving it a default value like that, I just say int x like that. So I just want to mention that in case you're declaring, and then.
But you still have to define the variable, right? Once you declare it.
If, yeah, and this is if assuming that you need variables that are just of method scope. We use that term scope to say, look, this, if you try to use X outside this method, the code is not going to know anything about it. It's going to say that so if I were to come down here, for example, outside the method, let's say down here at the bottom of the code, and I try to say, you know, X equals 10 or something, try to assign it a value, right? Then I get unknown identifier, right? So the code does not know what X is, and that's the limitation of method scope. So we've created a variable here within the method that is limited to use within the method. Its scope is confined to what we call method scope. as opposed to what we sometimes refer to as globally scoped variables, which are the ones that are declared here up at the very top. These guys can be referred to anywhere in the code, including inside a method, and they'll be defined. But a variable declared with method scope is known only within the method. It has just scope within the begin end block that defines the method. Okay, now then the question was, okay, well, yeah, but when does this guy get called, right? And the definition of that is a little more complex. Okay, so if we go to the properties editor, and we look at the events for the text label, actually, okay, this text label was defined in the code. Okay, so the text label, let's go back to where, let me do a little search for the resize. Okay, there it is. Okay, so when we defined the text label, we said, okay, when the subgraph resize event occurs, call that method. Now, when does subgraph resize occur? That actually is when, for example, you do something like this and you resize the subgraph. And when that happens, of course, the y coordinate that we were talking about the xy, you notice that this thing repositioned itself when we resized, right? So I resize this and watch, oh, there it moves, right? Because it's going to a specific xy coordinate and the y-axis changed, right? So on a subgraph resize, we want to reposition, and that's when that event gets called, is when the, but you make an interesting point though, which is, I mean, if you kind of didn't even know too much about a chart, or that a chart even had subgraphs or that kind of thing, you'd say, well, I don't even know what the subgraph resize or when it would resize. And so that's a good, it's kind of a piece of domain knowledge that you'd acquire as you started working with these things. But anyway, that's what.
Does the subgraph resize also apply when you resize the window, or is just when you?
I think so. Yes. So if I do that number, I think what happens is we could put a print statement and see if it gets called.
You don't have to. I was just asking.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. I can't recall if we say that the subgraph resize. I think we do.
It seems it does, because you're changing the size of the subgraph by changing the size of the window or the app, right?
Yeah. So like here, just, I mean, I can put a little note here, or a little print statement, and let's see, what did I messed up the code here somewhere? Oh, putting in this stuff. Yeah, let me take all that stuff back out, and my little variable, and then changed all that. Let's see here. All right, so now if we go back to our subgraph resize, whoops, we can put a little print statement in here. And there we go. Use this for debugging purposes. And let's see if this does what we expect. And it does not. So I expected that subgraph resize to fire when we did the resizing there, but I'm not seeing the print statement, so I'd have to investigate that.
It's okay.
Yeah. But anyway, those are so it kind of, I don't know if that answers the questions. Like, it's a little tricky though to know exactly when an event is going to be called. Given that the event depends, for example, in this case, on a user action.
John, you mentioned something around events, and in my code up under my events, I've got the charting host plus equals charting host underscore chart element click.
Yeah.
But it sounds like I can add another event for clicks that will say like something to the effect of charting host dot chart element click plus or equals to accounts provider. In order to have the method that I've got connected to accounts provider fired when a click happens on the screen. Is that true?
Yes, but I was interested by your statement that the accounts provider was not, and maybe we'll do just a little quick code here. That the accounts provider, because I think I heard you say that it was not updating when you expected. And maybe, but I may have misunderstood, but let's, because that accounts provider updates like constantly in my experience. So let me just see if we're on the same page here. So here's an accounts provider I just created. Okay, I'm gonna shorten the name of it. I'll just call it AP. And I'm gonna set it up where I do not set the accounts property. I will set load to true because I do want it to load. And I got real time is true by default. I won't specify any accounts, which means that the accounts provider will get all accounts. And then I'm gonna create an updated event handler here. And inside my accounts provider updated event, I'll do a little printing and say, just for now, AP updated, just so we can get, an idea of when it's updating. So, and then what I'll do here, just so we have something to look at on the chart, I'll just plot the close, in a subgraph. So then if let me take some of these other studies off here. I'm going to take all of these off. Okay. And I put my accounts provider study on here. I think we called that what? Test AP. Yeah. All right. And you'll see all these events coming in. So the accounts provider, I can't remember whether in the args we just give a few things in the args, but let me give you an example of something you might find handy, which would be, let me add another print statement here. What I'm going to print here is something like, I'm going to move it over a little, print a couple spaces, and then AP dot accounts. So whatever is my default account here, I'll print the let's see, account 0. And what I really wanted was a property of the of the account, like one of these. So let's see, maybe I'm using the incorrect syntax. Let's see here. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Account 0 dot, and then I've got all this different stuff, right? So, for example, the real-time, let's just say real-time account equity. And if I have a position open, we should see this guy varying. So, okay, so there's my real-time account equity. And let's see which account that's for. So if I go to the trade manager, then I can look at my balances tab and see, oh, okay, it's this account, this futures account looks to have that. That's the 0th account in the accounts provider. So if I change to my futures account, or change to a futures symbol here, then let me clear this print log. And let's say I go to the trade bar and just buy one of these. Whoops. Trade bar, use a market order, just buy one of these guys. Then you see how now the real-time account equity is updating basically with every tick in the symbol. So because now I have a position, so that value that we're printing, this real-time account equity is varying with every. So my point here is just I wasn't sure if I understood what you were trying to do, and you were, I think, trying to get some of these real-time varying values, but you weren't seeing them in the accounts. So I wanted to double check that, but it does look like they update in the accounts provider updated event.
I'm using a real-time account balance.
Okay.
And then
those now, okay, that's an excellent point. Some of these keywords, I forgot to mention that. Some of these keywords are account type specific. So, for example, real-time account equity, and then there are others, some of them refer to futures, and then other ones you would think, oh, that should vary, but it actually uses a different property if you're talking about equities. So I just mentioned that in other words, you might not be seeing the variation that you're expecting because of different keywords are required for that account type.
Real-time account net worth is what I have in my code right now.
Are you using that on futures or equities?
Equities.
Okay, so it's possible that and the way to determine that is there's a couple different ways you can go about this, but let me give a little more background here. These properties of the accounts provider. Okay, let me type this here, account equity.
So the question we're trying to answer here is the ability to have your account equity update in real time, right? Is that what we're addressing here?
Well, I was really kind of just reacting to what I thought Mike had said, was that he wasn't seeing certain things in the updated event change. Like, so he was looking at, I think, real-time account balance here. Is that right? And
that's right. So I've got real-time account net worth coming in. And
okay, and then you can And I think he may just be using a property that doesn't update for that
Yeah.
that asset class. And so we were kind of looking at which ones are for equities and which are for futures and that kind
So
of thing.
this one you're using, real-time account equity, seems to do the tricks because it pretty much
Well, but
updates.
I'm using it on futures and he's using it in equities. So
Mm-hmm.
so he might have to use something different for equities.
Maybe.
It works or it updates whenever I change symbols, but when I'm clicking on the chart and moving the horizontal line, it's not updating. So it's a little stale.
How do we find, the different types of words that can be used here, John, so that he can test them and see which one would give him a real time?
Okay, so the account class has this, it's a long list, and you probably have to do a little experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
So but these would be the types of things that you know, depending on what you're seeking, you may be trying to look at those kinds of values. I mean, the other way to approach that whole thing, again, depending on what it is that one wants to see,
Mhm.
would be to use a positions provider. And from the positions provider, get the position that you know, for example, for that symbol and account, you know, you create a positions provider and then reference the position by symbol and account, and then the position will have things like the P&L or the open P&L, and those will update.
Yeah. Okay, so it's just a little bit of experimentation that we need there.
Probably
Find one
right.
that updates.
Yeah. To
Try that, Mike.
find the best way
Yeah.
to get what you're. Yeah.
Try
On
that,
the-
Mike, and Mike.
On the screen, real quick, on the screen, up under TS data trading, you've got a list that starts with account fields, accounts, that whole list.
Yes.
Are those different methods? So you would have potentially a method for each one of those under trading. Is that true?
Not exactly. So let that's a good question. Okay, let's talk about what this thing called the Easylanguage Dictionary, also sometimes known as the browser help, or sometimes referred to by people as an object browser, and what all is in here. Okay, so we begin at the highest level with an organization by ELL, or one could think of these as being libraries, sort of similar to DLLs or dynamic link libraries. And within each library, if you will, within each ELL, there are namespaces. In this case, within the data access ELL, 3 namespaces: tsdata.com and tsdata market data and tsdata.trading. Okay. Within the namespace, we have classes. So each of these is a class. And so there's an account class, account fields class, accounts plural class, accounts provider class, and so on. Okay. Within, for example, the accounts provider class, let's just look at that one. There are methods, properties, and events. So these ones that are magenta in color are methods. The ones that have this little icon, almost looks like an index card or something, those are the properties. And then the ones that have a lightning bolt icon are the events for that class. Okay. If we wanted to, we could say, well, let me look at the count property of the accounts provider class. Well, what data type does it have? And then we go down here and we see, oh, the count property of the accounts provider is an integer. That's, you get that information here. And then can I set that? Well, no, you can't set that. It's read only. So, okay, let me look at a different one. The account property, well, it is of type tsdata.account, and it's also read only. So what ends up happening is that when you create an accounts provider, it automatically populates the account property, and then you can reference accounts by either the account number or by an index number. When we have two properties, you might say, well, wait a minute, you got two properties with the same name. And the difference between the two, that this is called overloading a property. And the difference between the two is how you access the account. One is by an index, the other is by the string or account ID. But then once you have the account that you're interested in, then you have all these properties. All of them are read only. You can't set any of these from code, but you can read them all, and that's what those are.
Okay. There are a couple, and we can come back to you, Mike, in a moment. Let me just address some of the questions that are here in the chat. For example, Steve is asking about a text box that you can use in charting. Now, I'm not sure why to put in longer length notes right into the chart. I mean, with a text object or a text drawing, I believe you can type in any length of text, right?
Right, you just have to resize it a little. Yeah,
I can explain why, because when you type in a text, it's just a long line of what you type in. It would be nice if it could wrap around.
I see.
Like every so many, like 20 characters, so it would make a paragraph you could read instead of using cryptic notes. Because as I make a trade, it's easier to take a note on the chart than it is to take a note in a Word document, then try to reference it. Well, what did I do on that trade? Why didn't it work? Or why did it work? I typed the notes into my chart. I was wondering if it.
Can you do what John is showing right here? John, what are you doing?
I just hit enter, but it doesn't wrap by itself. But if you hit enter, you can go to a new line.
Oh,
yeah, you can.
Okay.
Have you tried that, Steve?
No.
Yeah, let's try that. And yeah, it doesn't automatically wrap. There's no, I guess, in Easylanguage, you could technically create a text box. Could you, like in a form or something?
This is basically, it's what we call a text label. So it's a multi-line text label in Easylanguage terms. If that's, yeah.
So the best solution here would be just to use the text and hit enter anytime we want to wrap our text around.
Well,
correct.
Why didn't you tell me that a month ago?
I guess you've used many texts.
That was too simple.
Yeah, that's why we have John
But
here.
you can cross that one off. Solve that one.
It's okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, Steve. From Kaleem, he's asking about a calendar, like in an economic calendar, announcements, events. Can you put that into a chart? That's a good question, because we don't have a feature like that. I suppose that if no, I don't think we have. Have you considered that as one of a study in TradeStation, John?
We do sometimes get requests for that. The one like for example, the next earnings date study, it doesn't do anything here because I'm on a future symbol, but if it puts a little information, so the next earnings date study will, but it's text, it doesn't put any mark on the bar.
Right.
Of course, here it since you're on a 1 minute bar, I mean, it's basically a date, so it really doesn't have a bar that it could mark, but it's out in the future, you know, on the 26th of October and that kind of thing. But
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking
no,
about
the
yeah,
economic
exactly.
events, we don't.
We don't offer that. So I was thinking maybe if somebody already subscribes to, you know, a provider of an economic calendar, but then that would be difficult. I mean, and then I'm just questioning why would you want that to be on, you know, on your chart, and how do you grab that information using Easylanguage? But that would be a little bit too complex to do, right? You might as
It
well just go to the website and get your information there, right?
it does get that. That's the biggest thing, is that it does get kind of complicated. It depends on, you know, we have stuff, again, if you get into a longer term, like let's say we go to a weekly chart, and then we want to put, you know, something like, and we've talked about this one many times before, but the EPS postings, you know, show me study, then we can see where earnings were released, you know, as a date on the chart, and then combining that with the next earnings date, we know, okay, the next earnings date is, you know, somewhere out here, actually only a couple weeks away in this case, somewhere out here, in terms of a couple weeks in the future. So we've done some things that are symbol specific, but not overall kind of economic data. Like if you said, well, when's the next, you know, Fed meeting and that kind of thing, that macro data we don't really have.
Okay, pretty cool. Yeah, exactly. So whenever I get asked that same question, yeah, that's a feature that we don't offer at the moment. You know, I'm not sure if later on we'll make it available, but nothing we can do at this time. Yeah. You know, Jim did ask a question about a dot between the variables. When you were talking about the methods and you were showing the code, um, what does the dot do between the variables? Is this question? Do you, Jim, or John, do you know what Jim is talking about?
Yeah, probably these kind of dot, this type of dot here, and it's a good question, because what's not immediately apparent to someone who's new to this type of syntax is that this is an operator. So what do I mean? What I mean is that the dot is an operator in the same sense that an equal sign or a plus sign. So for example, I can write code like this, right? And put these, notice this code verifies, no problem. I got all these spaces in here, and it doesn't really care where the dot is, just in the same way that if I were to say, if I were to write something like value 1, you know, equals 10, right? The code doesn't care how many spaces I have here, for example. Okay, so if I wanted to, I can make this like I can write it like that, and that code will verify it, because equals is just an operator. It's just going to assign 10. Similarly, the dot says, okay, select from among the accounts provider properties, methods, and events the one that appears on the other side of the dot. And so it's going to select account 0, which is one of the account is one of the properties. And you remember when we were looking at this, we saw there were 2 that the account property was overloaded, and that here we have 2 different ways of getting the account, either by an index, which is the one I'm using with the 0th account within the provider, or by account ID, which would be a string. So that's kind of a short description of the dot is a way of an operator that says, okay, get the thing that appears on the right-hand side of the dot from the class instance that appears on the left-hand side of the dot.
Thank you, John. Philip is asking, I'm not sure, Philip, I understand your question. He says, I'm not sure if it was a comment or a question, but he says, if I may use Snagit, take a pic, then can easily label it, even create a link to place in Excel. It was just a comment. Okay, it's not a question. So
Okay.
so I wasn't sure what you were referring to. So I was kind of curious to see what you were saying. So all right, Jim is asking about a bug that is on update 66 on the strategy performance report. Somebody posted in the forums. Let's see, I'm not aware of the bug. So just see if there's any information here. A strategy performance report. Do you know what the bug is about, Jim? Or can you tell us what the bug is?
Yes, yeah, it's got to do with exporting this, the strategy performance trades to Excel. So
Oh, exporting
update
trades
60.
to Excel. Okay.
Yeah, it's used a lot in back testing, when people, essentially there's a whole procedure to put that in Monte Carlo and run through processes.
Okay.
And it's causing a lot of trouble for a lot of people.
Is that the one related to the rows not being that sometimes there was a row that was, I think, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Basically the rows.
Yes, we do know about that one. We're working on that. Yes.
Just curious, how long does it usually take? I mean, obviously I know it varies, but like what would be your guys's, kind of goal to get that fixed and roll out another one? I mean, what's kind of your guideline for that?
Well, as a rough estimate, we've kind of been looking at an update every 1 to 2 months. So releasing an update every month. So what happens? So for example, we're on update 66. We're in the process of rolling out update 67. I think the one I have applied here, if I go to, I'm running 67, which is in the process of rollout as we speak. And then so we would look to update, to fix, and depend that, so that's kind of the rough schedule. We would look to fix it in the next update, which,
Yeah, so that would be like 68, like year 67.
I can't remember if we've got that one scheduled for 68 or 69, but yeah.
Every couple months. So essentially you kind of roll out things like every few months. I mean, on average.
Yeah, that's sort of been our pace. Although it can vary depending on needs and so forth. So I hesitate to try to give a solid answer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of a fluctuating thing. But hey, let me ask you this. Automatic updates, they can be trouble. So why can't we turn automatic updates off and like update whenever we want to? What's the reasoning behind not having that?
You're talking about the automatic updates?
Yeah, because for example, that last bug screwed us all up. Because really what it is if we get updated and then we don't know about the bug and then we resave workspaces and then we find the bug, then we got to roll back to the previous version. But now our workspaces don't work because we saved them in the new version. This kind of problem.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. So I won't try to tell you something that I don't know.
Yeah, that would be good to like drill down, someone drill down over there, find out what was, why can't we have, like somewhere's in our preferences, it's okay to be defaulted on, but somewhere's in our preferences that we could turn that off and then just go to like most programs just have, when you go to help, there'll be like a check for update. And then you can, anytime you want, you could update it through that.
Right. Right.
through that.
No, that's good feedback and good to know. In the particular case of the SPR, that issue with the exporting to Excel, once you roll back, you should be able to export. But I appreciate what you're saying about the fact that you might have other issues and you might have done things and changed your workspaces. And then if you roll back, you can't use the new workspace.
Yeah, that's kind of the biggest
I
problem.
got you.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is the biggest huge, because you might not find that for like a couple weeks after.
Correct.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
All
Thank
right,
you for the feedback. Yeah.
thanks.
All right, perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the participation and the questions. It's great to see how everyone is, contributing to the success of this class. So thank you guys for always being present. John, I think this is all the questions that
Okay.
that I can pick up from the
Okay.
chat. So we'll call it a day today, and I appreciate
right.
it again. Okay.
Sure thing. Sounds good.
All right, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for showing up for class. Thank you for the support of the master class, and I hope to see you next class. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Thanks a lot.
You
Bye.
bet. You're welcome.